Good morning, 7th grade. We're going to go ahead and get started on the next section of Chapter 9, and that's going to be Section 4. And this section is going to be all about spheres. Am I spelling that right? Yes. All right. Today's date is the 26th. All right. Now, the reason they separate spheres into their own section is because they're such strange shapes from, all the rest of the ones we've been dealing with. There's no corners, no edges, no vertices. A sphere really represents all of the points that are equidistant from the center. That's what a sphere actually is. And the way we figure out surface area and volume is a lot different from any of the other shapes that we've dealt with, so that's why they kind of pack it all into its own section. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about surface area of a sphere. And the formula for finding surface area is 4 pi r squared. Now keep in mind, we are going to be using 3.14 for pi, and r is going to stand for the radius. All right, now just a quick reminder. If we have a circle, all right, and this is the center point. If we have a measurement that goes from one side through the center and to the other, this is called a diameter. And if we have from the center going only to one side, this is the radius. Okay? Your diameter is always going to be double what your radius is. Just keep that in mind as we are working. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put a number 1, and you should have gotten a couple cutouts. And if you haven't printed those, go ahead and pause the video and do that now. But this is the first one that I'll be using. So I'm going to pause and glue that in. Please do the same. Hey guys, I'm back. For some reason, I hit pause twice, and I kind of did part of the problem without the video going. But at any rate, I rewrote my formula. I plugged in the numbers that I know, so I plugged in 3.14 for pi and 9 for my radius. I went ahead and squared my radius, so 9 squared is 81. I multiplied 4 and 81 first. That's where I got the 324 from. And now I'm going to go grab a calculator and multiply 324 times pi. Be right back. Okay, so surface area of this particular sphere is going to be 1,017 and 36 hundredths centimeter squared. Okay. Now, when you're finding volume of a sphere, you don't even actually need the drawing of it. As long as you know the radius, you can figure out surface area. So, for example, let's say I had a sphere and its diameter is 10 inches. All right. Well, if the diameter is 10 inches, that means the radius has to be 5 inches. Because the radius is always half the diameter, or you could say the diameter is always twice the radius. Both are correct. So I'm going to rewrite my formula. 4 pi r squared. Okay, and I'm going to plug in everything that I know. So surface area equals 4. We're using 3.14 for pi. And 25 would go here because once I plug in 5, it becomes squared. So 5 squared, 25. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two guys. So surface area equals 4 times 25 is 100 times 3.14. Oh, that turned out nicely. So surface area of this particular sphere, all I have to do is bump this over twice. This would be 314 inches squared. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go the other way. What if we start with the surface area and we're asked to find the radius? So let's say I have a particular sphere and the surface area is 2,826 millimeters. Let's do that squared. And we are asked to find the radius. All right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start with our formula and simply plug in what we know, solve for what we don't. So our formula again, surface area is 4 times pi r squared. So I'm going to plug this in for surface area. 4 using 3.14 for pi, and then that's r squared. We don't know r yet, so I just rewrite it. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two guys. So 2,826 equals, and I'm going to head over to my handy-dandy calculator. So 4 times 3.1, whoopsies, 4 times 3.14. There we go. So that's 12.56 times the radius squared. We're going to go ahead and divide by 12.56 by 12.56. I'll go ahead and do that. 2826 divide 12.56. So I get 225 equals r squared. From that point, we would take the square root. And this one I happen to know off the top of my head. If you don't know it, just go ahead and plug it in your calculator. Square root of 225. But you should get that 15 is the radius. Or sorry, I should write it as millimeters. Let me rewrite that. 15 millimeters is the radius. There we go. We always put a label. So that is surface area of spheres. Let's go ahead and figure out volume. All right. So at the very top of my page, I'm going to write the formula for volume of a sphere. So volume is going to equal, I don't know where this formula comes from. There is a way to figure it out. Do I know what it is? No. I just know what the formula is. But volume is going to equal 4/3 pi r cubed. Now remember, when we have our exponents, the exponent means how many times you multiply that number. So for example, if I had 8 squared, that means 8 times 8. So it's 2, and I see it 2 times. If it's 8 to the third, that means 8 times 8 times 8. So when we're doing our volume problems, we're going to be taking the radius and multiplying it by itself 3 times. Just keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to write number 2, and I did give you another cutout, so I'm going to put an A, and it should look something like this. So I'm going to pause the video, and I'm going to glue in. Please do the same. All right, so I have mine glued in. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So you'll notice the measurement they give me here goes from one side through the center and to the other. So this is my diameter, which means that my radius is going to be half of that. So it's 21 centimeters. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to rewrite my formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in everything I know. This is going to be a very big number because you'll notice our radius is 21 centimeters, and we're going to go ahead and have to cube that. So volume equals 4/3. We're going to use 3.14 for pi, and 21 cubed. Let's figure out 21 cubed first. I'm going to go to my calculator. 21 cubed. Oh boy, okay. So volume is going to equal 4/3, 3.14, and this is what I got, 9,261. All right, let's go ahead and multiply all these guys. I'm going to pause, plug all this into my calculator, and we'll be able to figure out what volume is in just a sec. All right, here is the number I got once I multiplied. So after doing all that, the volume of this particular sphere is 38,772 72 hundredths centimeters cubed. Big number. All right, let's try another one. This time, we're not going to have a cutout. We're just going to be given the measurement of the sphere. So the radius for this one, we'll say, is 17 feet. As long as we know the radius, we can figure out volume. So let's rewrite our formula. Okay, and we plug in what we know. So volume is going to equal 4 thirds times 3.14 times 17 cubed. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 17 cubed into my calculator. So volume equals 4 thirds 3.14 times 4,913. And I'm going to plug all of this into my calculator. So 4,913 times 3.14 times 4 thirds. Whoa. So volume is going to equal 20,569. And I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. And 9 hundredths feet cubed. You can see how big our volume gets for our spheres, because once you have to cube this number, it gets huge. All right, one more thing that we're going to do. And I'm going to flip to a new page. Just like we did one where we were given the surface area and we had to find the radius, we're going to do one where we have the volume and we have to find the radius. So the volume of this particular sphere is going to be 33,510 meters excuse me, cubed. And I want you to tell me the radius. Question mark. There we go. All right, so again, I'm going to rewrite my formula, plug in what I know. So volume is going to equal 4 thirds pi radius cubed. I'm going to plug this in for volume, 33,510 equals 4 thirds 3.14 r cubed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and multiply 4 thirds times 3.14. And just so you guys know, 4 thirds, when you're multiplying, you can just do it as 1.3 repeating, just as kind of like a shortcut, because I'm doing this in my iPhone here, so it's hard to make fractions, so I just do it as 1.33333, and it works pretty good. All right, so 4 thirds times 3.14, and I'm just going to round to the nearest hundredth, so 33,510 equals 4.19 times r cubed. I'm going to go ahead and divide 4.19 divide 4.19. I'm going to go ahead and put that in my calculator. 33,510 divide 4.19. I got 7,997. And again, I'll round to the nearest hundredth. 0.61 equals r cubed. Now at this point, you're going to take what's called the cube root. It's kind of like the square root, but square root measures what number times what number gives me my answer. Cube root is going to find out a number times a number times a number equals your answer. So if you're using a phone, all right, so like here's my iPhone, okay, you'll notice there's a couple different buttons over here. You want to look, let me bring this up a little closer. You want to look for, oh, that's blurry. Do you see the one there that's got like the square root of x? And next to it, you see the same thing, but next to it is a tiny little 3. That's what you want to hit. So I'm going to plug in 7,997 and 61 hundredths, and I'm going to take the cube root. Oh, you know what? I'm going to round that, because if I round to the nearest hundredth, it's going to force all of these to round up. So I'm just going to go ahead and round it up. So this would be 20 equals R. Or I should say 20, what am I dealing with? Meters. So my radius in this case is 20 meters. Alright, so what you're going to do now, go ahead and stop the video and head on over to IXL and practice these skills there.